Hello everyone, I'm sure you'll agree with me that the Pokémon World is a far more interesting place than our world, but it turns out they're not too dissimilar.
Today, we're going to look at some of the coolest and funniest real-world references throughout the Pokémon game series. Now, I'm not talking about references as basic as the animals that they're based on, like these real-life mudkips, but the more subtle influences that exist if you dig deep enough. It's been made pretty clear that Pokémon as a whole takes place on a fictionalised form of Earth through some pretty obvious signposts, but there are a ton of popular culture jokes and geographical similarities for the eagle-eyed player. Let's go! Films and TV. One of the first real-life references is at the very start of the very first game. If you look at the television in the player's house, it mentions 4 boys walking on railroad tracks, like the film Stand By Me. It also foreshadows how willing your mother is to kick her 10-year-old out of the house and into a life of bloodsport and vigilantism, but I digress. If you're playing as a girl in the remakes Fire Red and Leaf Green, it describes a girl with pigtails walking on a yellow brick road, as in The Wizard of Oz.
Follow the yellow brick road. 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 Follow.
Terrifying piece of cinema. The third generation shows 2 men jumping on a big piano, like Tom Hanks and Robert Loggia in the movie Big. Also in Ruby and Sapphire and the remakes, you'll battle a couple called Hal and Lois, in reference to the parents from Malcolm in the Middle, played by Jane Kaczmarek and Bryan Cranston, later known as Heisenberg. And then there's a man in Pacifidlog Town who says, "One does not simply walk into a mirage spot," in reference to Boromir from the first Lord of the Rings movie.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Black 2 and White 2 came with a few bonus scenes that showed events involving gym leaders that took place between the original games and the sequels. In one of them, Skyla says, "Surely you wouldn't mind having a battle with me, right?" To which Elisa replies, "You bet, and don't call me Shirley," quoting the classic comedy movie Airplane.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
More recently in X and Y, Psychic Robert will say your Pokemon's level is over 9,000 when you beat him, a reference to a line from Dragon Ball Z that has since achieved meme status. Finally, in Pokemon X and Y, the final Looker mission is called "Here's Looking at You, Kid" from Casablanca.
He's looking at you, kid.
People. The most notable references to people are Kadabra and Wobbuffet, who are based on Uri Geller and Hayashiya Sanpei, which I discussed in a previous video, which you can see by clicking on Wobbuffet's head. In X and Y's Victory Road, just before the Elite Four, veteran Tomeo will declare "My body is ready," an infamous utterance by Nintendo of America President Reggie Fils-Aime when testing the Wii balance board back in 2007.
My body is ready.
This quote has popped up in a few games including Fire Emblem Awakening. A few characters in X and Y also share similarities with real people, like the champion Diantha. Given her role as a glamorous actress and more specifically her physical appearance, it's likely she's based on the actress Audrey Hepburn. I can definitely see the resemblance, and in that regard Lysandra is obviously based on Newton Faulkner. Interestingly, on the subject of Kalos, the ancient king Az is possibly based on the tale of the Wandering Jew, who according to legend was cursed to wander the earth until the Second Coming. This story, of European origin, has been the subject of several works of French literature, and it's easy to draw parallels between it and Az wandering France's Pokémon World counterpart for thousands of years until his Floette came back to him. Interestingly, did you notice that in the final battle with Az, he used Sigilyph and Golurk, 2 Pokémon said to have been around since ancient times? It would make sense that a 3,000-year-old man would still have those in his party. Also in the Pokémon League with Diantha is Vilkstrom, an eloquent knight who says he shakes spears, a play on William Shakespeare. In Lumio City's art museum, an Esper says "Degas" in reference to the French artist Edgar Degas. Wow, these games are really sophisticated when you read between the lines. Elsewhere, an NPC calls his Pokémon Sepultura, possibly in reference to the Brazilian heavy metal band, but also reportedly the name of a Charmander from the Japanese Red version manual. And finally, in the super training function, the message "float like a butterfree, sting like a beedrill" is sometimes displayed when hitting bags, like Muhammad Ali's famous quote on his fighting style. Music. A lot of real-life songs are sung by characters throughout the games too. A hiker in Rock Tunnel says "hit me with your best shot" and fired away after being defeated, a reference to the Pat Benatar song of the same name. In Pokemon White's Dragon Spiral Tower, someone sings the lyrics to Disco Inferno after hearing Reshiram's cry. And in Gates to Infinity, Swanna says "Don't Call Me Maybe," referencing the Carly Rae Jepsen song.
This is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
Games. An obvious one is that in each generation, the player will have the current Nintendo consoles in their bedroom, but there are more specific instances of other games being mentioned. In Copycat's house in Saffron City, if you inspect the SNES, she'll be playing a game featuring Mario with a bucket on his head, a reference to Mario and Wario, a strange puzzle game developed by Pokemon creators Game Freak and released in Japan in 1993, in which the player helps a fairy guide Mario to Luigi while he has a bucket stuck on his head and can't see. Japan. Another Game Freak game, Pulseman, influenced the design of B-Sharp and Rotom, who share physical similarities with the character. Then there's the mention of another Game Freak game, Harmonite, by this NPC in the Shaller City Pokemon Center. Talk about being self-referential. Some fans believe this shape in an alleyway in Lumio City to resemble Missigno, an infamous glitch monster from the original Red and Blue versions, but it might just be wishful thinking. A much more likely reference is the inspiration behind Phantump, said to be the spirit of a child who got lost in the forest. This is similar to the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, in which children who can't escape the Lost Woods turn into Skull Kids. Similarly, preschooler Mia on Route 4 says,
Hey, listen.
before battling. Places. Kanto is based on, well, Kanto, where Japan's capital Tokyo is. It's almost identical and comprises a lot of plains and grasslands, as well as industrial areas and factories, which inspired Silphco and the power plant. The Sevai Islands also reflect the Isu and Bonin Islands off the coast of Tokyo. In Kanto is mentioned the Silphco Tixi branch. It's a Russian wasteland used during the Cold War, and the idea that Silph were based there gives them a really sinister edge. Just what were they developing? Lieutenant Surge says he is the Lightning American and used Pokemon during the war. Pokemon for the most part is so light-hearted and family friendly that it's hard to imagine them being used to kill people in an actual battlefield.
But wars have been mentioned a few times in the Pokemon games, particularly X and Y, in which the Great War forms a very dark part of the story.
A man in Pewter Museum mentions the moon landing in 1969, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin first set foot on the moon. And apparently brought Clefairy back with them? Moving on to the next generation, Johto is based on Kansai, and features many temples and shrines like Johto does. Claire's Japanese name is even Ibuki, after the real-life Ibuki Mountains. Hoenn is based on Kyushu in southern Japan, flip 90 degrees anti-clockwise. It's a lush subtropical volcanic region, much like Hoenn itself, right down to an active volcano. Sinnoh, meanwhile, is based on Hokkaido in northern Japan, known for its heavy snowfall, which fits as Sinnoh was the first Pokemon region to feature snow. Which absolutely no one enjoyed. Unova is based on New York's Manhattan and New Jersey, and even takes its name from United States of America. In this sense, it's said to be far from the previous regions, which were fictionalized areas of Japan. The towns and cities are based on American locations, like Castelia City, which is based on New York City, and Unova's many bridges are reminiscent of famous US bridges like Brooklyn and the Golden Gate.
The Pokemon Timber, Girder and Conkeldurr are themselves references to New York's historic construction.
As I mentioned earlier, Kalos is based on France and the Channel Islands between France and England, with Lumiose in particular being based on Paris, fittingly known as the City of Light, and its beauty and culture, including the Eiffel Tower. It even mentions the French custom of cheek kissing, and a few other weird acts. In particular, Geosenge is based on Karnak, where there are thousands of Neolithic standing stones, just like in the game. Anistar, meanwhile, is based on Strasbourg, which has an astronomical clock like the sundial. The new region of Alola from the forthcoming Sun and Moon versions takes us back to America, as it's based on the islands of Hawaii. Its name comes from the Hawaiian words aloha, meaning hello, and ola, meaning life. It'll be interesting to see just how many similarities the islands share with their Hawaiian counterparts. It's also worth mentioning a few Pokédex entries, as they make references to our world. Regice is apparently made of Antarctic ice, Poliwrath can swim the Pacific, Delibird helps travellers on Everest, like the real-life Sherpas, plus he's based on Santa Claus. Raichu and Ghastly can take down Indian elephants, specifically. Ponyta is capable of jumping the Eiffel Tower and Ayers Rock, Australia. And the elusive 151st Pokémon Mew was discovered in the dense jungles of Guyana, which is stated way back in the creepy diaries in Cinnabar House back in Red and Blue. Miscellaneous. A challenger in the Battle Mason, who is still learning to internet, comes out with
Icon has battle prior to the fight.
2007 called They Want Their Meme Back. A trainer on C-Mobile says he found a Hi Skitty doll, alluding to Hello Kitty, but different enough to avoid lawsuits. Or more lawsuits anyway. Braille, a method of reading for those who are blind or hard of sight, is also used extensively in the Pokémon games, first appearing in Ruby and Sapphire in the form of ancient writings explaining the story of the Regis. Similarly, and while this is pure speculation, I've always thought the stone at the entrance of the Flower Paradise shared a resemblance to the Rosetta Stone, an ancient artifact that also had text inscribed on it and helped to teach modern humans how to translate Egyptian hieroglyphs. That's all for this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching. There are plenty of references to other Pokémon games within the series, but we'll save that for another video another time. Which is your favourite real-world Pokémon reference? Leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe for more Nintendo content soon. Cheerio!